Hey everybody, this is West Atlanta Bourbon Society. We're back again. We're here with
Leslie Walker Jr. Glad to be here.
and
Eddie Thomas.
Kevin Jablonski. We're doing a segment on how to drink and taste bourbon. Leslie Walker's kind of new to bourbon, so we're sitting down with him and explaining to him all the ins and outs of tasting bourbon. The first thing we'll start with is the glasses that you taste bourbon in. The glasses are really important. So this right here that Mr. A is going to show you is a Glencairn glass. It's one of the tulip-shaped glasses that we use to sniff bourbon in. It was from the Whiskeys of the World this year. It's a tulip-shaped glass. It's really good for you to be able to put your nose in, because the first thing you do before you actually taste a bourbon is smell the bourbon. A lot of your taste buds are associated with smell, so you want to be able to nose, what they call nose the bourbon, and smell the bourbon out of the cup before you actually taste it. So this is really good for that. It's got a wide tulip-shaped tip there, but it also has a base that's really good to hold the bourbon in, that you can swirl around and be able to really smell the bourbon out of.
My glass is empty.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. The next thing we have is the true Glencairn glass that they sell, the Glencairn style glass. And he's going to show you what that is. That is tulip too, but it has a short top to it. That's to trap in all the smells from the bottom of the glass of the bourbon that actually come to the top, so you can smell the bourbon better. A lot of veteran tasters and people that want to actually smell their bourbon first use the Glencairn glass, because it'll pack more of a punch and put more of the flavoring that's in the glass when they swirl it around into their nose. The other glass that we have here that we can taste bourbon in is the regular old rock glass. That's the glass you get at the regular bars and cocktail places, just the old-fashioned they made in the rock glass. And the fourth glass that we usually use to drink or smell or taste bourbon in is the cognac sifter. The cognac sifter, again, has that wide base and that open nose, so you can smell your bourbon. Another good glass to be able to smell bourbon in. So those are the glasses that we use to actually taste and drink bourbon in and smell bourbon in. The next thing we usually use for bourbon tastings is this Kentucky limestone water. So this is by Old Limestone. It's a mixing water that they use. It's a Kentucky limestone water. And if you know anything about bourbon, bourbon is usually made with Kentucky limestone water. So when you add that Kentucky limestone mixing water to it, it actually brings out some of the flavors and opens the bourbon up. One of the biggest things about being able to taste and sniff bourbon is the higher proof bourbons. They have fatty acid esters that have two different ends to them, a positive and a negative polar end to them. The heavier barrel aged and the higher proof bourbons, those ends are connected together and they sit in the whiskey. But when you add just a little bit of water, the heads of those fatty acid esters are attracted to the water, which breaks up the molecules. So it'll break up the fatty acid esters, which will open up a different aroma to the bourbon. As you know, if you look at some of our other podcasts that we've had, when we tasted bourbon, we always taste it neat, which means as is, just pour it straight from the bottle to the glass. And then we add a few drops of the Kentucky limestone water. Now, for some of the bourbons, it has made the bourbon taste better with the Kentucky limestone water, okay? But we've also noticed with some of the bourbons it may taste a lot worse. So it just depends. You need to try it for each bottle that you have and understand which one tastes better with the limestone water versus without the limestone water. Okay?
Okay, let's do it. Which one you trying first?
So the first thing we do, we're going to try all these on another segment, so be looking out for that. So the next thing we need to talk about is how to taste bourbon, okay? So American Bourbon Association has this wonderful piece of paper that I gave you right here. It's a bourbon wheel. Here you go, Eddie. It's a bourbon tasting wheel, okay? And what that is it shows you can print it off, and it shows you kind of how to taste bourbon. So when you look at it, there's 5 different inner circles. And you start from the inner circles and work your way to the outer circles. So the 5 inner circles are grain, wood, fruit or floral, sweet or spice. You pick one of those, okay? And then from there, you go out into the other ones, which is, if it's spice, is it earthy or mint or aromatic? If it's sweet, is it buttery, candy, or baked? And then you can get down into the chocolate, the honey, the toffee, the butterscotch, the caramel. So as you read this, you can kind of use this as a key when you first start to understand the different smells and tastes. The other thing you can do is just go in your spice cabinet. Grab out some cocoa. Smell the cocoa. Smell the bourbon. Does it smell like cocoa? No, maybe not. Get a stick of butter. Smell the butter. Smell the bourbon. Does it smell like buttery? You can kind of get those smells and those tastes out of the bourbon. That's the way that most people start off, learn how to smell their bourbon. And like I said, there's 4 different ways that you actually taste the bourbon. The first way is you nose the whiskey, so your smell. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you chew your whiskey. So when you take your whiskey, you smell it, you get an aroma of the whiskey. Then you take a taste. When you take that taste, it's kind of like mouthwash. You're going to take it, put it in your mouth, swirl it around, and chew it. Okay, you want to get all over, huh?
Smells empty.
Smells empty. Here, well, let's fix that real quick. We'll pour a quick bourbon here for him to taste.
He says we nose.
Yeah, so you nose it first. There you go.
Smells sweet.
All right. And then when you taste it, you take a sip of it and you swirl it around your mouth. So you're going to swirl it around kind of like mouthwash. I know it sounds kind of bad, but you're going to swirl it around like mouthwash. That way it gets all over your tongue, and all the pure grain alcoholness kind of dissipates off into your mouth. It should make your mouth a little numb sometimes when you first start. Your mouth will be a little numb until you get used to it. And then
Spicy.
Yep. And then you have to swallow it. So when you're swallowing it, you want to breathe out while you swallow. The reason why is because if you breathe in while you swallow, you'll choke. As I've done many a times, and I'm sure other people have too when they first start drinking high-proof bourbons and whiskeys. They swallow it and take a deep breath in. Next thing you know, all that alcohol and all that bourbon just went straight into their lungs, which turns you off to bourbon and really makes you not want to drink bourbon. So always breathe out consciously when you're drinking bourbon. Eventually you get to the point where it'll become kind of like second nature to you to breathe out.
How old is this bourbon? The old Granddad.
The Old Granddad, it's a straight bourbon whiskey, so it's at least 4 years because they didn't put the age statement on it. Usually it's anywhere from 6 years to 9 years, most bourbons that are out there now. But because that has the designation, as we talked about earlier, it says Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's definitely at least a 4-year product. So it's at least aged 4 years in the barrel. Some of these other products that we have up here have the age statement on them, like the Old Fitzgerald says 12 years. The Russell's Reserve Single Barrel says 10 years. The Hofstadter's Rye says 16 years on it. So some of them tell you what the age is. Now, age plays a very important part in the bourbon process. When bourbon sits in the barrel, it goes in and out of the wood, and it gives it its flavor. It gives it its subtleties. It kind of takes the burn out of the actual alcohol. Because if you ever try that White Dog Mash or that straight corn whiskey that hasn't been aged, the unaged whiskey, it's hot. It hurts. It burns. It beats you up. That's not good. That's not what bourbon is. Bourbon is actually in the barrel, and when it sits in the barrel and the wood eats up some of that burn. It eats up some of the alcohol. So the more years that it's aged, usually the more subtle it becomes, the less burn you have, the less
Smoother.
Yeah, more smoother, exactly. So the smoothness comes from sitting in the barrel.
Where would this old Granddad fit into their tasting wheel?
So on the tasting wheel, I'll let you taste it and tell me what you think. So take a taste of it and tell me what you think of it. So there's 5 first things: grain, wood, fruit and floral, sweet, or spice. What do you get out of that one?
Spice.
Spice, exactly, because it's a high rye whiskey. So he was right on that, spice. So out of the spice, you get more of an earthy or more of an aromatic taste to it?
I'm going to say earthy.
Earthy, okay. And then from there, what kind of earthy? Leather, coffee, or tobacco?
That's where I'm getting confused. Between, I know it's not, I don't taste any coffee, bean, or anything like that. I'm not sure about a leather taste. That's kind of new to me. So I'm gonna go tobacco more. I think that'll really go good with a cigar.
It does. It has a real good tobacco and leather taste. You were right on the leather too. It has a leathery tobacco taste. So you can say that. So when you talk about the whiskey, you say, it has a real leathery tobacco spice taste. A spicy taste is kind of like leathery and tobacco. That's how you talk about whiskey. And that's how you have just broke down that first whiskey.
Okay.
That is awesome.
Okay.
Any other questions you have as a new bourbon connoisseur?
Can we keep drinking?
Yes, we can. And in fact, stay tuned because we're going to drink all four of these, and we're going to do a focused review on all four of these with a new bourbon drinker that can explain these whiskeys and talk about them a little bit. So stay tuned. Check us out. West Atlanta Bourbon Society. Y'all take care. Thanks for watching.